Bhuti Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So we're doing text 31 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yeva Atad Ratha Charana Nemi Krita Parikhatasте Sapta Sindhava Asana Yata Eva Krita Sapta Bhuvo Dvipa.
Yeva Uvatad Ratha Charana Em Krita Parikhatasте Sapta Sindhava Asan Yata Eva Krita Sapta Bhuvo Dvipa.
Yes. Someone like to read?
I can read one.
Yes, please.
Translation. When Priyavrat drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheels created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhumandala into 7 islands. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes the planets in outer space are called islands. We have experience of various types of islands in the ocean. And similarly, the various planets divided into 14 lokas are islands in the ocean of space. As Priyavrat drove his chariot behind the sun, he created 7 different types of oceans and planetary systems, which altogether are known as Bhumandala or Bhuloka. In the Gayatri Mantra, we chant Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam. Above Bhuloka planetary system is Bhuvarlok, and above that is Swargalok, the heavenly planetary system. All these planetary systems are controlled by Savita, the sun god. By chanting the Gayatri Mantra just after rising early in the morning, one worships the sun god. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. So Gayatri is meant for those who are Brahmanas, not just by birth or by designation, but those who have actually acquired the Brahmanical sanskaras. So Gayatri Mantra is chanted by them. So 3 types of planetary systems, Bhur, Bhuvaha, Swaha. So above Bhulok is Bhuvar, and above that is Swargalok. So we don't perform stutis for lower planets. Just below the earth are known as Vilaswarga, the lower, what we can say, lower heavenly planets. They are essentially inhabited by demonic living entities, but they have a very high standard of living. Vilaswargas. So Maharaj Priyavrat divided this earth into 7 pieces. We're going to see more details later. Yes. So, and we continue. Text 32. These are just going to be like, just descriptions here right now. Nothing really philosophical in these descriptions. But of course, they are important for those who have deeper knowledge of Bhagavatam or who have deeper knowledge of Vedic cosmology. But other than that, there is not much of a learning from these particular topics that we're discussing right now. So text 32. Jambu Plaksha Shalamali Kusha Krauncha Shaka Pushkar Samajna Stesham.
Jambu Plaksha Shalamali Krauncha Shaka Pushkar Sangyas.
Parimanam Purvasmad Uttaro Yatha Sankyam Dvigunamanena Bahi Samantata Upklapta.
Parimanam Purvasmad Uttaro Yatha Sankyam Dvigunamanena Bahi Samantata
Upaklapta.
Would someone like to read it?
May I read, Prabhu?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Jai. Hare Krishna. Chita Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Translation. The names of islands are Jambu, Plaksa, Shalmali, Pusha, Karancha, Shaka and Pushkara. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance, beyond which is the next island. Purport. The ocean in each planetary system has a different type of liquid. How they are situated is explained in the next verse. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Text 33. So now we're going to talk about different types of oceans. What we live in is the ocean of salt water. Now we're going to see different types of oceans that exist in this world. Sharodeshu, Rasoda, Suroda, Ghatoda, Kshiroda, Dadhi, Mandoda, Shuddhoda.
Sharo, Dekshu, Rasoda, Suroda, Suroda, Kshiroda, Dadhi, Mandoda,
Shuddhoda.
Sapta Jaladhaya, Sapta Dvipa Parikha, Ivabhyantara Dvipa Samana.
Sapta Jaladhaya, Sapta Dvipa Parikha, Ivabhyantara Dvipa Samana.
Ekayakashyena Yathanupurvam, Saptasva Api Bahir Dvipeshu Prathak Parita.
Ekayakashyena Yathanupurvam, Saptasva Api Bahir Dvipeshu Prathak Parita.
Dveshu Prathak Parita.
Upakalpitasteshu Jamvadishu Barhishmati Patir Anuvratanatmajan.
Upakalpitasteshu Jamvadishu Barhishmati Patir
Anuvratana Tmajan Gridhe.
Agni Dredhi Jivha Yagyabahu Hiranyareto Ghrita Medha Tithi.
Agni Dreda Majiva Yagyabahu Hiranyareto Ghrita Prishtamedha Tithi.
Iti Hotra Samadnyan Yatha Sankhyenayake Kasmin Ekam Evadhipatim Vidase.
Viti Hotra Sangyan Yatha Sankhyenai Kasmin Ekam Evadhipatim Vidate.
Evadhipatim Vidate.
Yes, please. Would someone like to read this?
May I continue reading, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Translation. The seven oceans respectively contain salt water, sugarcane juice, liquor, clarified butter, milk, emulsified yogurt, and sweet drinking water. All the islands are completely surrounded by these oceans, and each ocean is equal in breadth to the island it surrounds. Raj Priyavrata, the husband of Queen Barhishmati, gave sovereignty over these islands to his respective sons, namely Agnidhara, Idhma Jiva, Yagnabahu, Hiranyareta, Grhita Prastha, Medhatithi, and Vitihotra. Thus, they all became king by the order of their father. Purport. It is to be understood that all the dweepas or the islands are surrounded by different types of oceans, and it is said herein that the breadth of each ocean is the same as that of the island it surrounds. The length of the ocean, however, cannot be equal to the length of the island. According to Viraragva Acharya, the breadth of the first island is 100,000 yojanas. 1 yojana equals 8 miles, and therefore the breadth of the first island is equal to 800 miles. The water surrounding it must have the same breadth, but its length must be different. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So just to show you, like in the second volume of Bhagavatam, this has been given as a photograph. So if you have, you can just look into the video here. So are you able to see?
Ji, Prabhuji, we can see.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
So you see, now the point is, this is a very controversial aspect of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, I won't be able to answer your questions on this particular topic. because there's still a lot of debate among scholars, even in our ISKCON. There's a lot of debate going on. So, what are these islands? Are they islands? Are they planets? What are they exactly? So, some of the scholars say that these are not really islands, they are like planets. Some say this is just like an allegorical statement. But from what I could kind of think is, looking at this map also, one thing we can understand is that these are nothing, these, like, these rings that we are talking about, the ocean of salt, ocean of liquor, ocean of sugarcane juice, these are subtended circles. The sense, like, Earth has its own plane of revolution. So in that plane of revolution, if you, like, for example, if you talk about probability of Earth at a particular point, then you can calculate that, at this point, Earth is here at this situation, and there is no other planet in that circle which the Earth subtends, in that whole circle. So we can call that like an ocean of, we can call that as an island surrounded by the ocean of salt. So likewise, if we take, because we know for sure that the ocean of salt is on Earth, and we also know that it's a sphere and not a circle. So, and we also know that 70% of land area is covered by oceans. So what exactly is, how do we understand this? So if we take the plane of revolution of Earth, if we extend the plane of revolution of Earth, we can call that as an island surrounded by the ocean of salt. So likewise, we can also describe, like these circles which have been described here in this diagram, we can also understand that they are subtended circles. They're not really flat circles. It's not that there's a circular ocean and there's a circular island inside it. But of course, this is a matter of debate, and it doesn't really add much to our spiritual life. So no need to think too much, but understand that there are planets with different types of oceans. So text 34. Duhitaram Jorjaswatim Namo Shanase Prayachat Yasyam Asit Devayani Nama Kavya Suta.
Duhitaram Chorjaswatim Namo Shanase Prayached Yasyam Asid Devayani Nam Kavya Suta.
Okay, King Priyavrat then gave his daughter Urjaswati in marriage to Shukracharya, who begot in her a daughter named Devayani. Oh, so Devayani is the daughter of Priyavrat. Okay, the granddaughter. Text 35. Naivam Vidha Purushakara Urukramasya.
Naivam Vidha Purushakara Urukramasya.
Pumsam Tadangri Rajasa Jita Shad Gunanam.
Pumsam Tadangri Rajasa Jita Shad Gunanam.
Chitram Vidura Vigataha Sakrada Ada Dita.
Chitram Vidura Vigataha Sakrada Adita.
Yan Namadheyam Adhuna Sajahati Bandham.
Yan Namadheyam Adhuna
Sajahati Bandham.
Yes. Would someone like to read?
Hadith Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Translation and purport by Stephen Gaze. Translation. My dear King, a devotee who has taken shelter of the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord can transcend the influence of six material waves, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. He can conquer the mind and five senses. However, this is not very wonderful for a pure devotee of the Lord, because even a person beyond the jurisdiction of the four castes, in other words, an untouchable, is immediately relieved of bondage to material existence if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Purport. Sukadev Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit about the activities of King Priyavrata, and since the king might have doubts about these wonderful uncommon activities, Sukadev Goswami reassured him. My dear king, he said, don't be doubtful about the wonderful activities of Priyavrata. For a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is possible, because the Lord is known as Purukrama. Purukrama is the name for the Lord Vamanadev, who performed the wonderful act of occupying the three worlds with three footsteps. Lord Vamanadev requested 3 pieces of land from Maharaj Bali. And when Maharaj Bali agreed to grant them, the Lord immediately covered the entire world with 2 footsteps. And for his 3rd footstep, he placed his foot upon Bali Maharaja's head. Sri Jayadev Goswami says, Chalayasi Vikramane Balim Adbhuta Vamana Padanaka Nirajanita Janapavana Kesava Dhrita Vamana Rupa Jaya Jagadisa Hare. All glories to Lord Kesava, who assumed the form of a dove. O Lord of the universe, who take away everything inauspicious for the devotees. O wonderful Vamana Deva, you took the great demon Bali Maharaj by your steps. The water that touched the nails of your feet, when you pierce through the covering of the universe, purifies all living entities in the form of river Ganges. Since the Supreme Lord is all powerful, he can do things that seem wonderful for a common man. Similarly, a devotee who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord can also do wonderful things unimaginable to a common man. By the grace of the dust of those lotus feet, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore teaches us to take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Ai Nandana Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Visame Pavam Buddhav Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrasham Vichintaya. O son of Nanda Maharaj, I am your eternal servant. Yet somehow or the other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. Lord Chaitanya teaches us to come in touch with the dust of the Lord's lotus feet, for then there will undoubtedly be all success. Because of the material body, every living entity in material existence is always disturbed by Sadguna, 6 waves: hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, invalidity, and death. Furthermore, another Sadguna are the mind and 5 sense organs. Not to speak of a sanctified devotee, even a Chandala, an outcast who is untouchable, is immediately freed from material bondage if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Sometimes caste Brahmanas argue that unless one changes his body, he cannot be accepted as a Brahmana. For since the present body is obtained as a result of past actions, one who has in the past acted as a Brahmana takes birth in a Brahmana family. Therefore, they contend, without such a Brahmanical body, one cannot be accepted as a Brahmana. Herein it is said, however, that even Vidura Vigata, a Chandala, a 5th class untouchable, is freed if he utters the holy name even once. Being freed means that he immediately changes his body. Sanatana Goswami confirms this. Yatha Kanchanatam Yati Kamshyam Rasa Vidanataha Tata Diksha Vidanena Vijatvam Jayate Nirnam. When a person, even though a Chandala, is initiated by a pure devotee into chanting the holy name of the Lord, his body changes as he follows the instructions of the spiritual master. Although one cannot see how this body has changed, we must accept on the grounds of the authoritative statements of the Shastras that he changes his body. This is to be understood without arguments. This verse clearly says, Sa Jahati Bandham. He gives up his material bondage. This body is a symbolic representation of the material bondage according to one's karma. Although sometimes we cannot see the gross body changing, chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord immediately changes the subtle body, and because the subtle body changes, the living entity is immediately freed from material bondage. After all, changes of the gross body are conducted by the subtle body. After the destruction of the gross body, the subtle body takes the living entity from its present gross body to another. In the subtle body, the mind is predominant. Therefore, if one's mind is always absorbed in remembering the activities or the lotus feet of the Lord, he is to be understood to have already changed his present body and become purified. Therefore, it is irrefutable that a Chandala or any fallen or low-born person can become a Brahmana simply by the method of bona fide initiation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Hmm. Thank you very much. My dear king, who has taken shelter of lotus feet, O Lord, can transcend the influence of 6 material whips, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. See, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he is acting purely under the will of the Lord. So as a result of that, he can do whatever the Lord desires. And Lord has, superhuman desires. So therefore, such a pure devotee who has taken complete shelter of Krishna can also perform superhuman activities. So it is not at all wonderful what Maharaj Purivara did here by breaking up one big island into 7 small islands with different respective oceans. Now, see, the life itself is conducted by consciousness. Physical body is just a vehicle. Bhramyami sarva bhutanam. Yantra bhramyami sarva bhutani mayaya yantra rudhani mayaya. So the living entity is just wandering from one place to another within different types of bodies. And these bodies are acquired by his different desires. So if the desires are material, the bodies will be material. If the desires become spiritual, then the body will also become spiritual. So there is nothing there's nothing at all wonderful about this. One can see that it doesn't require much time. The living entity continuously travels from one body to another. Dehino asmin yathadi. So if one at some point decides that he doesn't want this to continue this cycle of material world life and decides to cut this cord, then the material nature simply stops. Then the living entity simply stops his wanderings. He just takes a body. So this next body is shaped by our consciousness. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. So if in this life we cultivate pure devotion to Krishna, then it is guaranteed that in the next birth we'll get a spiritual body. So this conception, yes, certainly body is important. Like if one takes birth in a rich family or in a Brahminical family, it is to be understood that he or she has performed some pious deeds in previous life and therefore he has got a good body now. But that is still no guarantee that he will attain the lotus feet of the Lord. And that is certainly no barrier in one's approaching the Supreme Lord. So anyone in sinful birth can also attain Krishna, simply if one desires to surrender to Krishna. See, the most important aspect is one's own desire. Of course, the body and the mind that one acquires with a particular type of body, they become concomitant factors in one's advancement. But still, the key driver of one's spiritual advancement is one's own desire. If the desire is there, one will advance. If the desire is not there, one will not be able to advance. So, Brahma Janat iti Brahmana. So if one wants to be known as a Brahman, one has to know Brahman. One has to know the Brahman. So if one continuously practices devotional life, one transcends even the stage of Brahmana. One transcends this material designation and is able to progress directly into spiritual life. And thus one's life would be successful. And that is the goal of bhakti actually. Kibe Vipra Kibe Nyasi Shudra Kenenai, Jai Krishna Sattva Veta, Shri Guru Hai. Jai Krishna Sattva Veta. One who knows Krishna, he is the spiritual master. Yes, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. I have one question about these Brahmanas who are thinking that you need to take you need to take a birth as a Brahman, that you can be Brahmana, or in some other religions, I think also Jewish think that you can become only Jewish by taking a birth in Jewish family. So is it then that these people are like still very much on the material platform, that they are not able to accept that, or the spirit soul, that anyone can take this spiritual path, that they are on the bodily platform?
I think it's a question.
Like all these people who are Brahmanas
Hmm.
who are
Hmm.
saying that you can't,
Hmm.
you know, you can be on Brahmana by thinking about this Brahmana, so you still on the body platform only. That's
Yes, that is bodily platform. That is bodily platform. Certainly, a Brahminical birth is an advantage in the path of spiritual life, but that is not a guarantee of spiritual life. Simply by being born as a Brahmana, one does not become eligible to enter into spiritual world.
Yeah.
After becoming a Brahmana, after taking birth in a Brahminical family, one has to practice Brahminical culture. One has to try to remember the Supreme Lord. But one can remember the Supreme Lord even without being born a Brahmana. It's not a necessary qualification. Yes, Mataji, you have a question also?
Ji, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, this question is actually lingering on for a long time with me. So we say we should surrender, right?
Hmm.
I was reading a verse. I'll read the verse out.
Hmm.
Same chapter, Canto 5, 15th verse. I'm just reading out the translation, and the last line is actually a little bit not setting with me, I guess. It says, "One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see." So, जब हम कहते हैं surrender, right? We say, you know, whatever given जिस रजा में राखे राम, कि whatever situation you are given in, you neither regret or you neither be happy. You accept it as it is, and in that very situation, humbly serve Krishna. ठीक है ना? तो अब, for example, the surrender word में, I'm still trying a little bit. Agar, for example, if I don't have food to eat, and I can't say कि this is because Krishna desire, that's okay if I don't have food to eat. I still need to, I cannot be a burden on Krishna कि हर चीज में उनको मेरा ख्याल रखना पड़े कि हाँ इसके पास फूड नहीं है और ये बेवकूफ अपने लिए फूड भी नहीं ढूंढने जा रही ना, तो there has to be some हाथ पैर, हम भी तो मारेंगे ना, तो so that's where the surrender and थोड़े बहुत हाथ पैर is not going well together.
See, surrender doesn't mean that one becomes still. Surrender doesn't mean that one just becomes, lifeless, or just one becomes lazy and just sits in one place. Surrender means that one works only for Krishna. Now, if a government officer is working for the government and he's traveling here and there, the government provides for him. There is a daily allowance, the government will give him residence allowance. The government will do such things. Okay. The government provides all of it so that the person is not inconvenienced in his duties. So a devotee also works only for Krishna. The 6 Goswamis, they were doing Madhukari. Not that they were just sitting under a tree. They were doing Madhukari. But they were engaging all their intelligence and all their activities only for the service of Krishna. So in such a surrender, one depends helplessly on Krishna to provide for him. Because one is working only for Krishna.
They were still doing Madhukari, and of course, doing that would still require some bit of intelligence. So they were doing that, but leaving what they get in return on Krishna. Is that how we should take it?
Yes. So they were doing Madhukari, but they were not thinking that, yesterday that Mataji gave me some very nice rotis. This other Mataji doesn't cook so nicely, so I'll not go there. It's not like that. Okay, that Mataji cooks very nicely. Let's go all. Then next day, today she gives donation to one Goswami, and the next day all 6 Goswamis are standing there. No, it wasn't like that. So surrendering completely on Krishna for their sustenance, but on the other hand, working entirely for Krishna's service only.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Any other questions? Okay. Then we continue. Text 36. Sa evam aparimita bala parakram ekata tu devarshi.
Sa evam aparimita bala parakram ekada tu devarshi.
चरणानुशयना पतित गुण विसर्ग संसर्गेणानिवृत्तम्
शयनानुपतितगुणविसर्ग संसर्गेणानिवृत्तम्
निर्वृत्तरम्
इवात्मानं मन्यमाना आत्मनिवेद इदम् आह
इवात्मानं मन्यमाना आत्मनिर्वेद इदम् आह
इदमः
May I read one?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna was done with Pranam. Translation proposed by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. While enjoying his material opulences with full strength and influence, Maharaj Parivarta once began to consider that although he had fully surrendered to the great saint Narad and was actually on the path of Krishna consciousness, he had somehow become again entangled in material activities. Thus, his mind now became restless and he began to speak to the spirit of initiation. Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17, it is said, Takvam Savi Dharmam Charnam Bhajam Harir Bhajantam Aparko Patit Tato Yadi Yatraha Kev Vivajam Abhyut Amusham Kim Kovartaha Apato Bhajatam Savi Dharmatma. One who has devoted the material occupation to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature state, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. If one somehow or other comes to the center of a great Vaishnava, it takes to Krishna consciousness because of sentiments or realization, but in course of time falls down because of immature understanding. He is not actually fallen, for his having engaged in Krishna consciousness is permanent asset. If one falls down, therefore, his progress might be checked for a certain time, but it will again become manifest at an opportune moment. Although Parivarta Maharaj was serving according to the instructions of Narada Muni, meant for going back home, back to Godhead, he returned to the more material aspect at the request of his father. In due course of time, however, his consciousness for serving Krishna reawakened by the grace of his spiritual master, Narada. It is as stated in Bhagavad Gita 6.41. Suchinam Srimatam Yehe Yogana Yaste Bhajyoti. One who falls down from the process of Bhakti Yoga is again offered the opulences to the demigod, And after enjoying such material opulences, he is given chance to take birth in a noble family of a pure Brahmin or a rich family, or to be given the chance to revive his Krishna consciousness. This actually happened in the life of Parivarta. He is a most glorious example of this truth. In due course of time, he no longer wanted to enjoy his material opulences and his wife, kingdom, and son instead of. He wanted to renounce them all. Therefore, after having described material opulences, just a minute. Maharaja Parivartaha Sukadev Goswami in his this works describes his tendency for administration. The word Devas Charanan Anushayan indicate that Maharaj Parivarta, having fully surrendered to the great sage Devarishi Narad, was strictly following all the devotional process and regulatory principles under his direction. In regards to strictly following these regulatory principles, Sri Bhaktivedanta Chakravarti Thakur says, Dandavat Paramas Tan Anupataha. By immediately offering obeisances Dandavat unto the spiritual master and by strictly following his directions, the student becomes advanced. Maharaj Parivarta was doing all these things regularly. As long as one is in the material world, he has to be under the influence of the modes of material nature. Guna, etc. It is not that Maharaj Parivarta was freed from material influences because he possessed all material appearances. In this material world, both the very poor man and the very rich man are under material influence. For both wealth and poverty are creation of the mode of material nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.27, Prakritate Kriyamani Gunaha Kamani Sarvata. According to the modes of material nature, we acquire the material nature gives us facility for material enjoyment. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dhanwad.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. See, so once Srila Prabhupada was asked, why are our sannyasis falling down? 70s, many of Prabhupada's disciples fell. So Prabhupada was asked this question, why do these sannyasis, they're leaving the sannyas ashram and getting married? So Prabhupada said that, these are young men. They have just taken up this role of sannyas without having enjoyed this material world. And therefore they are prone to fall down. So he said that's all right. They're like, it's not a nice thing, but nothing exceptionally bad because they have rendered service to Krishna. So certainly their position is exalted. So that is one thing. Another point here is, another very interesting point is that the Varnashram process allows one to enjoy material life and then gradually become detached from it. So Maharaj Priyavrat here enjoyed material life for quite some time. And now when he is satiated, this renunciation has again arisen in his heart. So now this verse that comes in Bhagavad Gita, Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Bhijayate. So Yoga Bhrashto Bhijayate, one who has immaturely taken up to the process of bhakti and then fallen down, he has no loss, no harm. No, there is no harm in it. Neha vikramo nashosti pratyavayona vidyate. So there is no loss, no diminution. It's not that the yogi will lose anything. Of course, one should not fall down, like Prabhupada says, that this is an unnecessary, there will be an unnecessary stay in this dukhalayam ashashvatam. So not that if you are a devotee and you have fallen down, there is no loss. No, there will be some loss, meaning you will suffer a little bit, at least. There's some suffering there. And that suffering would come in the form of birth, old age, disease, and death. So even if you take birth in the family of very rich people or Brahmana, you'll still have to undergo birth and death. And that is not very pleasant. So therefore, as far as possible, one should try to finish this devotional service in this life. Like Prabhupada says, finish your business and get out of this material world. Or as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, this material world is no place for a gentleman. So if one has lived in this world, so one who has engaged in devotional service, somehow or the other will have some taste for spiritual life. And gradually as one goes on practicing, one will see the true nature of material world and develop a disgust for it. So gradually by practice of devotional service, one becomes free. So here we see Maharaj Priyavrat was executing bhakti under the instructions of both Brahma and Narada. So because he had already practiced all his tapasya and from the very beginning, he actually had no attachment to this material world. So in this material world, everyone is acting under Prakriti, Prakriti Kriyamanani, everyone is acting under the influence. So one should not think that if one is not opulent, one will be free from material nature. It doesn't work like that. As an old English saying goes, even a beggar is proud of his penny. So this material world, everyone is proud of his particular position. He's attached to it. So as far as possible, one has to become free from these misconceptions by studying the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, by hearing from the spiritual master, and by practicing whatever the spiritual master instructs. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado, yasya agat prasadan nagati kutopi. So yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado. So by mercy of the spiritual master, one develops all the good qualities. One is able to go back to God. One is able to go back to the spiritual world. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado. So also in the Bhagavad Gita, the importance of spiritual master is so clearly delineated. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So that process is given. Approach a bona fide spiritual master, render service to him, and then make relevant inquiries. Because a spiritual master is Tattvadarshi. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas Tattvadarshina. Because he is a Tattvadarshi, he will be able to reveal to you the exact path which is required for you. For example, if you go to the doctor gives the same medicine to every patient. To different patient, he'll give different medicines depending on their disease. So spiritual master is like a spiritual doctor. He'll diagnose the exact problem the living entity is facing in the material world, and he will give him this exact method which is required for him to get out of this material world. To some of his disciples, the spiritual master would indicate Grihastha ashram. To others, he would directly instruct to take sannyas. In this way, spiritual master will guide every living entity according to his particular nature, whichever is the most suitable path for him to go back to Godhead. So this is the spiritual process. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
So
Krishna.
you find this one text which may clear doubts of many of us. Very clear, we started it. Even if it fall, we will take care of it.
Yes.
Great confidence.
Yeah, but there's a great danger there that Prabhupada also mentions. First of all, this fall down will mean more pain.
Yes, sir.
Because, like, suppose in this birth we are not perfected and we have to take another birth. That other birth will also have birth, old age, disease, and death. There will all the difficulties that we have already faced in this life. We'll be facing them all over again.
Yeah.
Going to school, studying, going to college, taking a profession, then struggling. All this would come. And then secondly, in our next life, there will be again Maya acting on us. So we don't know what Maya will present and how we will react to it. So there is always a danger of a greater fall down. So it's best to just finish this affair of spiritual life in this life itself, in this birth itself.
Good, pure advice. I agree. Another thing, probably in this case, Parivarta had already done his devotional duty, and he was doing only on the behest of Brahmaji. Not Narada Muni told the right of Brahma, but he was doing it because Brahmaji wanted, and so his son is also wanting that. In this case, then, he will not be responsible for any of his activities, isn't it?
Pardon, I didn't get your question, Prabhu.
I think in this case, because he was coming back from his devotional duty, he was coming back to the material things only because of the advice of Brahmaji. That way he was following the instruction of Brahmaji.
Correct.
Now, in this is a cycle. In this cycle, main thing he will be doing because he's doing the part of the nature. Right? Suppose he may go for a shikar and do it because he's Kshatriya. He'll do shikar. In normal course, he should have been guilty for this. But will not be because it was so engineered that he will do shikar, etc. because Brahmaji has asked him to continue in this life.
Correct.
He may not be knowing that he's doing it. But unknowingly you are doing it also. So that means he should not be responsible for any of his karmas.
So yes, he will do whatever he did, whatever was needful. So the living entity will do whatever is needful, but always the danger of Maya will remain. It's like someone is drowning in the ocean, and a big boat comes and saves him, and drops him by the sea beach. So at the sea beach, the living entity is still safer, but not completely safe because the ocean can come any moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, so definitely any progress is welcome. But the danger of Maya will always remain. So it's best to not count on Maya leaving us so easily. To finish our business in this life itself. Completely surrender to Krishna.
That's really true, Prabhuji. I quite agree. Because we gain something. But there is every opportunity that we may go back again to the same because Karsi Maya Devi.
Yes.
That I agree. But only thing what I thought reading the first part of this text, that is the consolation about those devotees who are neophyte. And they are wondering what will happen to us. So this gives you assurance that you are not likely to lose.
No. There's no loss. Neha Vikramo Nashos.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hari. Okay, so we stop here today. Time is up. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Pranam.
Thank you.
Dandavat Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Pranamji.
Thank you. Dandapram. Hare Krishna.